Hello everyone, it is I, Voyage of Paint, and in this video I am trying something new, at least new for me. I'll be combining a landscape of some northern lights with a portrait image of a fox. Why? Because during my research of the northern lights myths for that video with the northern lights, I came across the mention of a story from Finland that talked about foxes that run across the mountains and that brush up snow with their tails and create sparks that light up the sky with an aurora borealis. And so I decided to do a painting based on that, just for funsies. At first, I tried out some different fox drawings in my sketchbook to see what would stick with me. The poses I took were based on images I found on Pinterest mostly, and that also included this funny picture of a fox hitting his face into the snow. Comment down below if you'd like me to do anything with that, because I'm not doing anything with it in this video, but I really love the pose. I think it's really fun, and I think it would be a fun painting, but I'm not sure what, so comment down below what you would like me to do with that. Anyway, I spent quite some time sketching different foxes, either running, walking, standing, face planting the snow, and so on and so forth. Then I play around with some colours for them to see what may stick. I kind of divided it between the two pages of my sketchbook. So on the left side I used indigo, rose, permanent blue, violet, a little bit of, I don't remember if it was turquoise green or turquoise blue, but one of those two, or even both. I'm not sure. I don't remember exactly. But I also used some lemon yellow and quinacridone purple blue. Although I'm not sure if I got that first word right there. The writing on the pan is quite small. I did label my pans, but with a word like quinacridone, it's a bit difficult. It took me a while to even get to a point where I could say, okay, that kind of sounds like that's the word it means. Anyway, on the other side I played around with mostly sort of blue shades and a little bit of the two purple shades I used on the left hand and a nice light green tone that I am not sure if I mixed it or not. I should write that down somewhere in the future. Somebody make sure I remember to write down what colours I am using when I'm trying to describe my process, because when it comes to painting, the colours do matter, kind of. But anyway, I play around basically with purples, blues, greens on that side. And all the colours I am using are from the Van Gogh paints. They're from a big palette, even though I only use a couple of colours from the palette itself for this whole painting. But yeah, that's basically the palette I'm using for myself, the palette I put together from the Van Gogh paints that I have. Anyway, out of all the sketches that I made, the ones I like the most are the portrait on the very left, the face-planting fox, of course, and the fox on the bottom right-hand side. Most of these, however, do have great potential for perhaps other paintings, but not right now. Though, I gotta say, foxes are some gorgeous animals to paint overall. Like, really seriously gorgeous. It's really fun. I should draw them more often, just in general. Tell me which one of the sketches you guys like the most down below, because some of them would make some really fun paintings. Maybe not necessarily as foxes like the one that I'm doing at the moment with the, well, not at the moment, I'm still sketching out the different foxes, but not like the one that I'm doing today with a sort of northern lights landscape inside of them, but maybe as a more realistic painting. Maybe like I could paint a fox that has been tamed and bred a little, because when you do that with foxes, they have this thing where, like, when you breed dogs, their fur starts having different colours. Obviously, they're not going to turn purple and blue like the fox I'm painting today, but, the usual reds, browns, and I kind of really like the idea of that. It's just like, I could do that. Maybe find myself some references for it or something like that. Starting to get distracted again with different paint ideas that are different to the painting I am doing today. but I love playing around with these ideas while I'm doing these videos, you know? I'm kind of wondering if the fox that I used for the head portrait image is a fox like that, because it sort of had a sort of orange outline around the eyes and then it was mainly white. That was a very interesting fox, which is kind of why I kind of saved it on Pinterest, because it looked very interesting and fun. Maybe I'll one day do a realistic painting of that as well. But today isn't about realism, at least not really directly. It's sort of like a mix. I'm not really sure what is the definition of this. Anyway, once I figure out which sketch I want to use for the overall big painting, which is the very first sketch I put down in my sketchbook, the one with the head, I then get a big sheet of paper, an A4 sized piece of paper actually, and sketch my fox out. This time I am not completely sticking down my painting with my purple tape and then the masking tape in addition to keep it down properly. I don't do that today because everything around the fox is going to be white anyway, like the negative space is just going to be white. So I just stuck the paper down at the corners, and that's just to make sure it doesn't move around as much while I paint on it. My plan was to kind of have a big fox head as sort of like the centerpiece, and then inside of it we have the landscape of the Northern Lights and the mountains, and then you've got a little fox jumping around on those mountains, which is sort of based on the Finnish story of the fire fox. No, we're not talking about the browser, we're talking about foxes that run across mountains and create the Northern Lights. Just keep that in mind. And that was the basic idea of the overall sketch. So I sketch out the fox face overall, so you've got the eyes, the nose, the mouth, which will cause me a little bit of trouble later on, because in the reference image the mouth just kind of bends down a little and it's looks a little unhappy, and it bugs me for a lot of the painting process because I like to sketch accurately, but in this case I kind of had to take a little bit of a little artistic liberty and change up the mouth a little bit. Other than that, I, make sure I know where the basic bits of fur are, and the mountains are going to be down in the neck area of the fox, because I kind of still wanted the fox face to show clearly, obviously. So, once the sketch is done, I get a big brush and put a bunch of water across the whole thing, except for the eyes, which are going to remain dry, so I can define them properly separately sort of from the image. It's a lot of soft and hard edges and stuff. Most of this painting is actually quite loose, aside from perhaps the mountains, but generally the fox fur, that's always kept very loose. And then once everything I want wet is wet, I go in with the colours that I had picked for this painting in the sketchbook. So, the rose, the lemon yellow, the two purple shades. I have the two turquoise shades, the indigo, and basically I just kind of try to get the sort of movement of Northern Lights, but also keep it very blurry because it's still a fox painting technically. So I'm having to make sure that is still gonna be visible with the landscape in the background. Maybe eventually I'll, do a little bit more of that, but not at the moment. At the moment they're going to be very undefined and it's just going to be a single layer. I'm going to spritz it with some water and then wiggle it around, move the paints into each other, have them sort of kind of mix it a little bit and let it dry. Once it has dried, I use my indigo and define the mountains more and drag them out at the bottom a little bit, blend them into the fur slightly so that I've got that going on. It's still a fox, so it sort of has to look a little bit furry still, kind of, but also not really, because it's a landscape, kind of inside the fox. Anyway, I take some light shade of blue, that I don't remember if I just lifted it off a palette or took it straight out of a pan. I don't remember. Should have written it down. Anyway, moving on. I also add in shadows, so I darken the ears a bit, trying to get the effect of the fluffy things that are inside of the ear, but that are technically light coloured. It's a little bit tricky, but I eventually do figure it out. I also put some furry details down below where his jaw is. I try to darken the areas around the eyes just a little bit to sort of get the look that the fox in the reference image has, with the orange around the eyes and a little bit across the snout as well. Basically just defining the main features of the fox face. So I've got sort of a base to paint on when I draw in the details, like the eyes, the nose, the really dark things that are supposed to be there. Just for now, I'm trying to get the sort of values that it's got, but also trying not to lose the sort of colours underneath it too much. Just add a little bit of fur and everything. Once that's dry, I can add in the details around the eye, so the dark sort of thing it's got, the lid, the pupil. I define the mouth a little bit, though at the moment, you know, you can see he's kind of looking a little bit unhappy. And I do change that later on, trying to give him a more smiley mouth. It looks a little bit forced in the end, but it's fine, so long as it's smiling, right? That's why I basically just put a bunch of water over it, dab it off with a paper towel, and add a new paint over it. And then once that's dry, I can, you know, do that. But I do re-sketch the jumping fox onto the mountains, because I lost that during the painting process overall. And I just kind of needed another guideline so I don't mess it up the silhouette, which I will add in right about now. And after this, I will also paint in another layer of mountains, just to give it sort of a little bit of perspective and not just make it look like a flat line of mountains, if you know what I mean. But you can really start to see how the fox is coming together now. I'm really loving it already. And then I redo some of the darker details, and I gotta say this painting process is going quite a lot quicker than I can talk about it, so excuse me if I'm sort of behind or in front of it. It's just a little tricky to get the timing right with this, at least. But after going over the dark areas in the ears again, I finally feel brave enough to redo the nose and mouth and make it look a little friendlier overall. Although, now that I am looking at it again, I feel like this snout may be a little bit too short. But that's beside the point. Then I darken the mountains once more before bringing out my Van Gogh metallic watercolours to add some shine to the painting overall. I add some of the iridescent blue and gold to the eye of the fox, and I add silver and Copic metallic watercolours to the silhouette of a small fox that's jumping across the mountains to make it look more foxy. And then I just kind of splatter a bunch of the metallic waters across the page, mimicking the sparks that the tail of the firefox brushes up as it runs, creating the northern lights for us. I just thought it would be a nice touch. And finally, to tie off the painting, I add some little details to it. Like, I take my opaque white and paint some snow over the tops of the mountains, even though in the end I don't think I did a particularly great job with it. I mostly did that also to cover up some of the splatters that ended up on the bottom half of the fox, because I didn't actually want those there. I should have covered that area up before I put the splatters on, but at the time I just wanted sparkles. And who can blame me for it? I mean, sparkles are fun, right? I love shiny and sparkles. Glitter all the way. As for the bits of sparkle that kind of flew outside of the actual fox painting, I just put a big drop of water on top and dabbed it off with a paper towel so that the rest of the painting remains white, because that's what I wanted. I wanted the main background to be actually white. I do have a little bit of a struggle with the mountains and the snow. It sort of just, I don't know, it didn't quite look the way I had wanted it to, but it's fine in the end. In the end, it looks okay. But let's not get too absorbed with me talking negatively about my paintings again. Overall, the mountains look absolutely fine. They are very, very snowy, at the very least. And I'm very proud of myself for it. So, now we can get into the final results, finally. I adore this painting. I love it. I love the colours of the sky. I love the colours of the fox. In general, like the way that everything plays together a little bit, the way that the fox face looks over the top of the landscape. I really like the way I managed to put my idea into a painting. Like the thing, when something works out, like something I've planned, I've had it in my head, I knew sort of what I wanted, and it worked out perfectly. I love when that happens. And I mean, I do kind of have a lot of experience painting animals in general, so I already knew that I was going to be able to pull this off at the very least, you know? Yeah, it's shiny, it's very, very pretty. I absolutely love it, and I hope you guys love it too. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, share, you know, all the good stuff. I am the Witch of Paint, and I will see you next Sunday. Bye!